Welcome to the second part of our Albany walkthrough. I am at the State University Plaza right now. Before the Empire State Plaza was built, this was known as just the Plaza. Now you're probably wondering, what's this stunning building behind me? That is the SUNY Administrative Building that was built in the early 1900s in the Gothic Revival style, and it's got some Dutch elements as well. It's got a 13-story high tower in the center, and it's got a working weather vane that is modeled after Henry Hudson's Half Moon. And if you are curious what Henry Hudson's Half Moon is, that was the ship he sailed on when he was contracted by the Dutch East India Company to find a trade route to East Asia. Oh, by the way, this building here was built by Marcus T. Reynolds, probably the most prominent architect in the Albany area. You're gonna see, I'm about to roll up on another building that he did. But anyways, we could talk about Henry Hudson. Talked about the Half Moon, that was the ship he sailed on. So he was trying to find a trade route to Asia, and he ended up coming upon the Hudson River instead, and sailed up and found what is modern day Albany. And we talked a little bit about the history in our last video, and that is what the Hudson Valley and the Hudson River and all that, named by Henry Hudson, or named after Henry Hudson rather. So behind me is one of my favorite buildings. This is another Marcus T. Reynolds building. He was the architect. This is in the early 1900s as well. This is done in a Renaissance Revival style. This was the Albany Trust Company building. Stunning, just absolutely stunning building. And now it's just the Research Foundation building for the SUNY system. Oh, I forgot to describe that we're walking up Broadway right now. Now, Broadway Street is very interesting because it connects all the way into New York City, believe it or not. It's a very long street. Let's get another shot of that Trust Company building. I love it. Broadway's a cool street. This is what's known as like the lower historic district here. Most of these buildings were built in the early 1900s. Speaking of early 1900s, right next to me is the James T. Foley Courthouse. This was finished in the 1930s. It was done in an Art Deco style. And it's no longer a courthouse. It now houses just different government offices. But it's got a nice marble facade. Then my other side, we'll wrap around to that, but you see the Home Savings Bank. That used to be the tallest building in Albany. We'll talk about that later. Now it's definitely, I don't even think it's in the top 10 now. But in 1927 when it was built, it was the tallest building. Now pretty much all these buildings you're gonna see, all the older looking ones, there's a few buildings that were built in the past 40 years here. Like this one you see behind me, but most of these buildings down lower Broadway and even further down Broadway, they're all built in the early 1900s. It's a pretty cool area to be. It's not too nice of a day here in Albany, so not a lot of people are out. But anyways, we talked about Broadway connecting all the way to New York City. That's pretty cool, huh? And we are about to approach Union Station. It's about to be on my right. I'll shift the camera in a second. But Union Station used to be the railroad station here in Albany up until the 80s when it got shut down. Now the railroad station is in Rensselaer, which is right over the river from Albany. Now, unfortunately, you can't really see what was Union Station anymore because of all the trees kind of covering it, so it's hard to get a good look. Hello, how's it going? This was done in a Beaux-Arts style, also made in the early 1900s. I would have loved to live during the time when this was functioning. Here, I'll get a better view of it. But it was said that I think 90 something trains came through the station a day. So during that time, that was a lot. Got the copper swing doors. That you don't see much around here. That's like a New York City thing. Beautiful brass. Yeah, Union Station is pretty cool. But like I said, you can't really see much of it. I'm like trying to get a shot of it. Can't see much of it because of all the trees. I mean, I'm not an anti-tree guy. I'm just, be nice to see it for the sake of the video. Here we have the Peter Schuyler building. That's another cool Beaux-Arts style building now. It just houses law offices. It used to be a bank. Here you'll see that in Albany we've done, or not me, but the city has contracted a lot of artists to sort of do street art. And I think it's really cool because the less appealing areas, maybe you have a building that looks a little dilapidated or whatever, and I think street art is a great addition, personally. This one, I don't, I think it's cool. I've seen cooler around here in Albany, though. Maybe we'll do like an Albany street art video one time. That might be cool. But I'm right under the one of the buildings that houses the Department of Environmental Conservation for the state of New York. Now, this building I think was built in the 80s. I could probably get a shot and B-roll of it. It looks very odd. It's I think people call it like the Green Dome or something. It's just, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of some of the more modern stuff. Now we're gonna be going under the freeway here, as you can see, and if you ever want a really good steak in Albany, if you ever come to town, you come here to 677 Prime. This is the spot. Spot for a good steak. There's a lot of good steak spots, but I love this. You're gonna have to pay a little money. I mean, you're getting a good steak, but it's worth it. I feel like a new man after. Alright, we're going to be rolling up on the Albany Skyway. Now, the state of Albany just opened this year, the Albany Skyway. They took an exit ramp and they turned it into a walking path that connects to more bike paths and whatnot. And you can kind of see Albany from a little bit higher up. So that's pretty cool. It's nice to see them do things like that. But anyways, here is the Albany Skyway. Or Skyline, or what is it? Skyway. Yeah, see? Just opened this year. Pretty cool. Now, we're going to be rolling up on the second oldest building still standing in Albany. This is the Old English Pub. Now, this used to be the Quackenbush House. It was built in the 1730s, and it is a great example of Dutch urban architecture. Now today, like I said, today it is the nowadays it is the Old English pub, and if you love English pub food, it's a great spot. But you know, you don't find much of around here, so very, very cool. It's got the double pitched gable roof and all the things that are very classical Dutch architecture. And so it is cool to still see something this old standing. You know, 1730, man. And it looks good. Now we're gonna walk down Clinton Ave. When we get down Clinton Ave, we're gonna get to the Palace Theater, and then I'll continue our video. And I will be turning down North Pearl Street. So I'm doing kind of like a square here. I'm going a little bit up Broadway and a little bit down Pearl Street. We'll talk about a few of the buildings. I'm gonna be rolling up on the Palace Theater. We'll talk about that when I cross the crosswalk. Behind me is the First Reformed Church. We'll also talk about that. The oldest church in Albany. You know, I'm just gonna cross this fucking... I mean, screw it. I need to be family friendly now. I'm doing tours. Alright, so cool. They got the lights going right now. Let's walk up and down this building. So this behind me is the Palace Theater. I like looking at the fire escapes there. Yellow brick, made in the Art Deco style. Built in the 1930s by John Eberson. He was a very famous theater architect. He built theaters all around the world. Here, we'll walk along the side too. And the Palace Theater houses around 3,000 seats. That's pretty freaking cool. And obviously, famous people perform here. As you can see, Kevin James, tons of people perform here. It's the other, it's one of the few big venues here in Albany. Like this and the Egg are two big ones. We're gonna hopefully cross this crosswalk. I gotta actually push this button. This is what I keep forgetting. I'm used to the city, man. Oh, that's a better look of the green dome building I was talking about, which houses the Department of Environmental Conservation. Yeah, a little weird, but yeah, it's a little weird looking. Here you can get a better view of the... Jesus, trucks are loud. You get a better view of the Palace Theater. Just tilt it up a little bit while I'm waiting for this. Alright, now we're heading down North Pearl Street. Just like Broadway, a lot of these buildings were built at least over 100 years ago. I mean, this is like, some of these buildings were built in the early 1900s, and as you'll see, the First Reformed Church was built in the 1700s, so I mean, you get more of a variety. I'm sure you can see the Palace Theater better. Any second now, we'll be crossing into the First Reformed Church. Now this church up here is the oldest church in Albany, designed by Philip Hooker. He's a famous church architect, built churches all over the world as well. or all over the country. And like I said, this is built in the late 1700s. Very old building. Beautiful church. The actual congregation that this church houses dates back as far as the 1640s. The Dutch inhabitants of Fort Orange created the congregation. And then around 130 years later, the actual church was built, the first Reformed. Alright, so we're walking further down North Pearl Street, and you'll see behind me is the Kenmore Ballroom. Now this is a stunning Victorian building. It used to be known as the Kenmore Hotel. Now that was actually constructed by the son of a slave in the late 1800s. His name was Adam Blake Jr. Now the story of Adam Blake, his father, is very interesting. Adam Blake, his father, was brought into Albany as a slave, and he worked for Stephen Van Rensselaer III. And over time, as an adult, he became the manager of the house staff for this Rensselaer Manor. Sorry, it's it's kind of difficult to talk about, so I'm stumbling on my words a little bit. But anyways, as their, I guess you can call it, relationship over time grew, Van Rensselaer decided to free Adam Blake, and he became a prominent businessman, and also married a woman at the First Reformed Church, which we saw. I'm gonna cross this anyways, fuck it. It's a very interesting story. So he has a son, Adam Blake Jr., like I said, and his son became well educated because they were in a prominent spot in society. And he's very well educated, and he became a top-end businessman. He opened, I think it was like 4 restaurants. And then the city of Albany trusted him enough to construct the Kenmore Ballroom, or the Kenmore Hotel. Years down the line, in the 1920s, it becomes the Rainbow Room, where people like Frank Sinatra, Duke Ellington perform. Then once the end of the big band era, like once that wanes down, it was out of commission for a while, and then reopened as a wedding venue. Here right next to me, we've got the Home Savings Bank, or what was the Home Savings Bank. So as you can see on the facade of the building, that was built in the 1920s. In the year 1927, when it was built, it was the tallest building in Albany. Then a year later, the Alfred E. Smith building was constructed, and that surpassed it. And then years later, the Alfred E. Smith building was surpassed by the Corning Tower. And many other towers got built, so I think the Home Savings Bank no longer takes even like top 5 tallest buildings in Albany. Just wanted to show you. Oh. A second, maybe I should walk under the church here, because we talked about the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception last time, and you get a little bit of a view of the corner. But anyways, this is a very cool area here. We're going down Lower State Street. Oh, by the way, the Home Savings Bank, I think it's a bunch of like law offices now and stuff. A lot of things. There's like law offices or government offices now. Let's go further down State Street and we'll basically be back to where we started. And then I could show you a piece of Dutch architecture, because fuck it, why not? Or Dutch Revival architecture. So last video I had, I was like kind of low to mid State Street, so now we're going down lower, all the way down. This is a cool building because I really like the, it's got this color of brick that you don't see much of. What an immaculate home that would have been. Here to the right of me, you see what was the National Commercial Bank. Another early 1900s build. I want to say that's like a Roman revival. I'll put a white text over the video if I screwed that up there. I keep wanting to switch the camera so it shows a different side of the street, but to be real, this is the cooler side of the street. But yeah, what it's like living in Albany, I mean, hell man, as you can see, there's enough people to have a good time, meet some people, but it's also not crowded. And if that's something you like a little bit of space, it's a good area to be. You like nature, you like hiking. Perfect area to be. Actually, you know what? Let's walk further. Let's walk this way. It's like these crosswalks take so long that I just end up saying screw it, and the second I say screw it, that's when a car comes. But I don't know, man. You can't just wait for life to pass you by. You know what I'm saying? You gotta grab it. You gotta do something. So we're crossing back down to where the SUNY Administrative Building is.
I want to be in your video.
There you go. You could be. So, I forgot to mention, right where the plaza is over there is approximately the area where Fort Orange actually was built during the early 1600s when the Dutch inhabitants were here. So very interesting. We're actually in like possibly the richest area of history. In upstate New York, I'll say that. Because like I said, Henry Hudson touched downstate first, the mouth of the Hudson River. But yeah. We're going down lower Broadway here. And I like this area a lot. That's why I'm walking down it right now. There's not anything super significant I'm gonna show, but I really fucking like this area. It's really relaxing, except for when people honk at you. And I'm gonna give a little bit one of my favorite businesses a shout out here. So I do digital and film photography, and one of the only places in the area to get film developed in-house, which is very important, is McGreevy's Pro Lab and Pro Press here. I highly recommend their services. If you're in the New York area at all and can't find a place that does it in-house, travel out to Albany and come here. And it's a great view. I mean, when I walk out, I get to see the the SUNY Administrative Building. And I'm like, you know, it's worth it just to see that. because I love Gothic Revival architecture. Oh, I forgot to mention about the SUNY Administrative Building. The chancellor of the SUNY system actually resides in the southernmost tower. I think it's the top 3 floors he resides in. So that's also very fascinating. And then behind me here, I'm not even gonna go down that way. But behind me, you'll actually see Dutch Revival architecture. That building was built in the early 1900s. It was a restaurant for a while. I think it was like part of a row club building as well. I'll put white text if I need to correct that. But I just think it looks cool. It's a little derelict. Like it's up for sale if you want to buy. But yeah, the last I knew, it was a restaurant, and it is no longer. But it is a cool example of like ultra Dutch Revival. When I say ultra Dutch Revival, I mean there's no question that thing's Dutch. So anyways, we're gonna end the tour here, back to where we started. And, you know, part 3, I'll see, you know, maybe I'll go further up Broadway. Let's get a nice view of the Albany Trust Company Building and Broadway. But yeah, I'm ending it here. Next video, we'll see what we do. But it'll be fun. And thank you for watching. I really appreciate it.